Hello, and welcome to another featured author discussion from the book, The Other Side of Divorce. And it is my very great pleasure to introduce Dr. Eleanor Haspel-Portner. She is an amazing woman who has over 13 published books. She's a certified Tai Chi Gong instructor and an expert in human design and the four worlds. Her focus is on guiding individuals on transformative journeys of self-discovery and empowerment. And Dr. Eleanor Haspel-Portner, welcome. And thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Thank you so much for being an author in the book and for sharing your inspirational story. I know what on our focus on this YouTube recording is to talk about your area of expertise. So I'm going to hop out of the picture here and just allow you to share some of the wisdom and insight that you provide your clients and the readers for the book.
Excellent. Thank you. So, when I worked on my degree, my PhD at University of Chicago, I didn't realize at the time that I was studying about the four worlds: the mental world, the spiritual world, the emotional world, and the physical world. And I went and got my postdoc as a clinician and went into private practice and began to notice that things were missing. Couples needed different kinds of communication. They needed help with values. And over time, working with consciousness and myself being psychic and having some Kundalini experiences, which at the time I didn't understand at all. I just was sort of flying blind and not just, okay, this couple, it's not working for them. What do I need to do? Where do I need to go? What skills do I need to get? And ultimately, I came across the human design system, which I recognized because I was trained as a Jungian analyst. And I recognized the mandala that was part of the human design. It was a synthesis of the tree of life, chakras, astrology, the I Ching. And then I was asked by the developer of it, by Ra Uru Hu, to scientifically validate it. So 45,000 cases later, I not only validated that the body graph is real, but I also found that much of what Ra said did not hold up. And so I was faced with a real dilemma. What do I do? And so, using my social science background and my statistical expertise, I expanded the system to include the four worlds. I didn't know at the time I was doing it, but I was looking for the sleep design of a mammal because I had the dream design of a mammal. And so, having been trained as an astrologer and a psychic, I used my expertise in understanding how to run astrology charts by hand. And so I went to the lunar minute and found that I could differentiate my twin kittens by about 10 lunar minutes, about 10 seconds. And so I was able to differentiate a cat who died at age 10 and one who lived at 18, and they were identical twins. And so then I looked at what I had for a human, and it delineated the four worlds: the mental world, the spiritual world, emotional, and physical. And as I began to work with that material, I realized that the field of psychology has only been working with the mental world. And it was like, oh my God, what have we missed? And so as I began going back through the charts and looking at clients and relationship charts, I realized that so much of the mismatch between couples or between people is that they're talking from a different world. And of late, I've been teaching the four worlds through the Tree of Life. And the paths of intelligence, 32 of them, in the Tree of Life, the Kabbalistic Tree of Life, mind you. So it's ancient knowledge. It shows that we are energetic light bodies living in a physical form. And because we're in a physical form, we need to spiritualize ourselves. We need to bring spirit through our waking life and our emotional life. And it's very clear in the lower triangle of the Tree of Life that emotional reactivity must be transformed into spiritual understanding and knowing. And that understanding and knowing is core to who we are, and it takes courage. Most people, I think, are fearful. And they're fearful because as we are bringing our children up in the Western world, we're not teaching them to live from spirit. And so I always say to my clients, when you know what you know, and nobody can tell you you don't know it, stay with it. Do not compromise that. That's your spiritual core. And so many children are not listened to from that spiritual place. When I look back at my practice, and I've been a clinician for over 50 years, almost all of my clients came to me because they weren't heard. Their spiritual core was not recognized. And when I wrote my article for the divorce book, what I realized was that my first husband and I were really well aligned and loved each other. When we were entering graduate school, he was in medical school, I was entering my graduate program, and we were such great supports for each other. But we were functioning in the mental world. And we were supporting each other spiritually to do what we both felt was our mission in life. But as we graduated and he began to make a lot of money, and we didn't need me to make money, he wanted me to not work. He wanted me to give up my career. And I couldn't do it. So he was very much going after the money and the glamour and the prestige of being a medical doctor and a cardiologist. And he wanted to achieve in the real world. And it was a beautiful trajectory for him. And he was a great medical doctor. But I was beginning to have Kundalini experiences, to meditate, to dedicate my life to spirit. And I started studying astrology, thinking this is the most scientific of esoteric fields. And it is. But it was the hardest thing I ever studied. There were no computers at that point. So I was hand calculating and learning, and ultimately, it came down with my first husband to being on a different spiritual path. And so fortunately, I had the courage to end that relationship and to say neither one of us are going to be happy if we stay together. And in fact, 5 years after I divorced, I met my soulmate on a trip to India because a voice told me to go to India. And I thought, what am I going to India for? But a voice says to you, do it, you do it. So I went to India and met Marvin, and we've been together since the day we met 46 years ago. And our values are perfectly aligned. We meditate every morning. We live in a balanced way in the four worlds. And what I'm teaching in my classes and in doing charts for people is that start with spirit. If you're not spiritually aligned, nothing else in your life will resonate at that deeper level. So meditate, be with God in whatever way you perceive the divine, and live from that core of your being and have the courage to speak it. Because you are a brilliant divine being, and you're here on earth to express that and to live that and to be that. And that's what I do. I do a free webinar every Thursday at noon. Everybody's welcome. And what I do is an attunement at the beginning and the end to rebalance from spirit. And then I deal with whatever people want me to address in the webinar. Lately, I've been, the last couple of weeks, I've been suggesting to people that they think about stories they were told about themselves growing up, and that they think about, are those stories true about me? Did I buy them? Did they misdirect me? And as we go back through our life and replay things and reframe things, we reclaim our brilliance and our divinity. And so that's what I teach. That's what I suggest for people. And be aware that each world has its own skills. And you can learn those skills, and then your life just works. So that's what I do, and that's who I am.
Thank you so much, Eleanor. Thank you for sharing that. I think this is such an interesting topic. I'm wondering if we can discuss a little bit more about the work that you do. And specifically, I think most people have heard of human design, I think, or a fair number of people will have heard of human design. But the whole concept of the four worlds is maybe something that is, I know it was certainly new to me the first time I spoke with you and you told me about it. I immediately went and got on Google and looked it up and saw some things, but you're really a pioneer in bringing this to a usable, taking it out of the esoteric and bringing it into people's lives. Can you just maybe tell us a little bit about what the four worlds are as people who maybe are hearing this for the very first time?
Yes, and actually January 13th through 19th, I'm doing a 5-day experience of the four worlds for people. And I'm going to offer it again free for 5 days. And then people can buy the materials at the end if they want them. But it's maybe a 20-minute a day commitment, and it's self-paced. I've recorded everything. And at the end of the day, I ask a question in that world. So the worlds are the spiritual world, the world where we dream, we sleep, and we connect with the divine. It is who we are. When we say I, the I is the divine. The mental world is the waking world we live in. The waking world we live in is connected, interestingly enough, to the physical world. And that's why galvanic skin responses are so important. A lot of what activates us and dysregulates us is emotional reactivity. Mm-hmm. And it triggers us unconsciously. And we learn how to react in the mental world based on our culture. What I found when I tested the human design system on 30,000 cases was that the body graph held. Now, I own the copyright and the trademarks on the body graph, and the one I use is sacred geometry. The other ones you'll see with rounded or a heart in the center, they're not sacred geometry. So they're not communicating on the unconscious level what spirit is. So when I did the statistics, what I found was that when I expanded the calculations to the 4 worlds, it tracked developmental sequences in early baby development.
Okay.
So a baby, by the time it's 3 months old, has everything it needs to manifest its full potential. And that's really my message to everyone. Forget about a design chart, forget astrology, forget therapy that tells you you're broken. You're not broken. You're whole. And you've been told that you're not a full human being who can manifest your full potential. You are spiritual. You know who you are. And as you back into meditating and into spending time with yourself and time with the divine, that is you. The Holy Spirit is in you. And so when you recognize yourself and have the courage to live who you are, then you manifest yourself. So I start in my 5-day experience with spirit. And then I go to the physical because we need to take self-care.
Sure. Yes.
You need time. And then emotional reactivity must be transformed into spirituality. And then the mental world, everything falls into place.
And I think this aligns.
Does that explain it sufficiently?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to do that. And I think that does explain why some relationships are just destined not to succeed, because you can see where there's a misalignment, even as an outsider looking into the relationship, maybe as a friend or a family member. You can see where the misalignment is on, I'm going to say, the spiritual level, but I'm guessing it could be if any of those 4 worlds are not in alignment, there could potentially be a challenge in any relationship, whether it's friend, family, colleague, coworker.
The more superficial than the spirit can be worked on. You know, you could have goals in the real world, and I hope people do. But when you're spiritually misaligned, the relationship cannot survive.
Yeah.
Because it's undermining the core of who one of the people thinks they are.
Sure.
And
yeah,
it's hurtful.
Yeah.
And spiritual hurt is hard to recover from.
That's what I was going to say, because I think that's really where trauma comes in, doesn't it? In that sense of hurt and betrayal and challenges, just constant challenges within the relationship. I really like the idea that you share with people about how you can make changes in your life, but it takes a lot of courage to do this. How do you find, or what do you find brings most people to your trainings?
Most of the people who come to me are seekers and have been committed to growth, and they haven't found anyone who gets them. The expansion of the human design system, that's my system, is called Noble Energy Maps. And there is a free report available at nobleenergymaps.com. And there's also a premium report available. And what I look for in all of my clients is, who are you? Who do you manifest? Who are you comfortable being? And I speak to soul. So when I'm speaking using what is called clean language, which is language that has no kinesthetic, visual, or auditory component. So it's not mental world, it's spiritual world. So it's questions like, and when X, what do you know about X now? When goals, what kinds of goals are your goals? When joy, where does the joy come from?
Yeah.
Inside you or outside of you? Those are clean questions. And so very often, let me just give everybody a tip here. The quickest way to stop an argument in a relationship, turn to your partner and say, dear, what would you like to have happen now?
That's a powerful question.
Ends it right. A very powerful question. And I ask that question a lot. But in Noble Energy Maps, I'm looking at 4 worlds. So I'm looking at, how do you function in the mental world? How do you function in the spiritual world, emotional and physical? And are you prone to emotional reactivity? And if so, how do you channel the energy so that it becomes spiritual? And how do you use creative intelligence? Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who brought transcendental meditation to the world, talked in his Science of Creative Intelligence course about using creative intelligence. Creative intelligence is spiritual intelligence. It's thinking outside the box that we usually think in. So when you're stuck, what are you missing? What does your soul want you to do? And is this world interfering with who you are? Often it does. And then we get caught up in the mental world and forget to take time for ourselves.
Right.
I've been a meditator since 1974, twice a day, every day. And I wouldn't be without it.
Meditation is so powerful. Yeah.
It's like a stop the world.
Yeah.
Let me go inside. And when you do that, you go through different phases of the 4 worlds. So you go from the mental world to a world where you know everything is going on around you, but you're not engaging with it. So that is a good place to recognize emotional reactivity because it's a neutral zone. And then you go deeper and you're in spirit. The physical world is a world of its own.
Right.
It has its own autonomic nervous system, and it's triggering. Right now, I'm sitting on a PEMF pad. PEMF frequencies have a way of shifting our vibration. So which world is it in? Depending on its frequency, it can be in any one of the 4 worlds. And we have technology now that we can use to help put us in the different worlds. Carl Jung talked about the 4 worlds and 4 types. Why do we talk about 4 all the time?
Yeah.
There are 4 worlds.
This is
Mental,
absolutely amazing. And I think
physical.
I think we could go on for a long time. And obviously you are such a groundbreaker, a researcher, a leader in this area. That, like I said, it was such an honor to have you participate and be an author in the book. The knowledge you bring and a different approach to looking at things that I think is something that we get little bits of it. Some of us do little bits of the things that you've talked about, but really to have somebody like yourself to be able to learn from that brings it all together is just phenomenal. So, Dr. Eleanor, thank you so much for being an author, and thank you so much for sharing your wisdom here. I will make sure all the information about your programs, about your January event, and everything is in the show notes, so people will have a way to get to that and participate and have that ability to learn more about the four worlds. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And thank you. Yes, we have a little bit of a delay. Thank you so much for speaking with us, and thank you everybody for listening in. And again, you can read Dr. Eleanor Haspel-Portner's chapter in The Other Side of Divorce.